You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in this morning, and it's my pleasure to be here. And we'll pick up where we left off in this most prophetic book, The Papacy and the Civil Power, studying history to determine what will happen in the future, comparing history with Scripture and Bible prophecy. This book shows us the fulfillment of Bible prophecy in history and the rise of Antichrist. We've been talking about the temporal power of the Pope and how corrupt the Roman Catholic Church was, and how the East and West iron legs of the Roman Empire developed. And we're still talking about that today. And if you're following along in your copy of the book, whether you got it on the website or whether you have your own hard copy, I'm reading from a hard copy of the book, and I'm reading on page 360 at the bottom of the page, the last paragraph. He says, R.W. Thompson says, Paschal I became Pope in the year 817 A.D. Leo V, the Emperor of the East. Now remember, the East and Western empires are divided over the veneration of images and idols. The Roman Catholic Church approves. The Eastern Church, centered in Constantinople, disapproves. And so that split the empire. Not only was the veneration of images and idols a split between the East and the West, but the West, as we've been talking about, committed treason. The Pope asserting himself as a king of kings. And he began to ally himself with the King of France, and together they committed mutual treason against the lawful Emperor of the East. So we have a religious and political split between the Eastern and the Western Roman empires. It says, Paschal I became Pope in the year 817. Leo V, the Emperor of the East in Constantinople, I will add, and Theodore, Patriarch of Constantinople, sent nuncios to him, that is the Pope in Rome, with the view of reconciling the disagreement between the Eastern and Western Christians in reference to the worship of images. Now, first you have to realize that the Eastern diplomats are coming to the West, supposedly to seek reconciliation. Now, you must understand that if the Pope wishes to rise in his prophetic role as Antichrist, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the counterfeit of Christ, he doesn't want to reconcile with the East, because if he reconciles with the East, he has to accept the preeminence of the Eastern Christians centered at Constantinople, and also the Eastern Empire, the Eastern Emperor. So this meeting is not going to go well, as we might well imagine. And it says, but the Pope, fearing that a reconciliation of this kind would lead to the impairment of his papal influence and put an end to the alliance that he had with France, and caring far more for his temporal power than for the restoration of harmony in the Church, refused to receive these nuncios or to hear any suggestions of compromise. He drove them out of Rome in disgrace, and relying upon the protection of the King of France, had the impudence soon after to send legates to Constantinople and command the emperor, that's right, to command the emperor to restore the worship of images. How much at that time a few mild words and the meekness and charity of true Christianity would have done for the cause of genuine religion may be seen by those who will examine the history of those times. Now, first of all, I want you to realize that R.W. Thompson, as well-meaning as he is, trying to present history factually, has made a concession, one that he often makes in this book. And I presume that it's just out of charity that he makes this concession. This concession that Roman Catholicism, whether Eastern or Western, is true Christianity. But we know through Bible history and through Roman Catholic history that this is not Christianity at all. As a matter of fact, if you'll recall, if you're a regular listener of Inquisition Update, we read the book by Ralph Woodrow, Babylon Mystery Religion, and he shows us how the Roman Catholic Church got its roots from ancient Babylon and Egypt. It's pagan to the core, and as a matter of fact, Ralph Woodrow uses the Roman Catholic Encyclopedia as one of his main sources of reference. And in the Roman Catholic Encyclopedia, the Roman Catholic Church admits in its encyclopedia that much of the trappings of the Roman Catholic Church, particularly the vestments of the priests and the rituals and ceremonies and pomp and circumstance in the Roman Catholic Church, is derived directly from Babylon and Egypt and paganism. It makes no bones about it. And if you've got one of the original Roman Catholic encyclopedias, if you have a set, you can look up those references in Ralph Woodrow's book, Babylon Mystery Religion, and see that the Roman Catholic Church doesn't even deny its pagan roots in its own encyclopedia. But R.W. Thompson, charitable as he is, in order possibly to not alienate potential Roman Catholic readers of his book, acquiesces that the Roman Catholic Church is Christianity. But it's not, and I want my listeners, particularly my regular listeners, will clearly understand this. But I want to tell my new listeners, if you're just new to this subject, do your own research into the Roman Catholic Church, its rituals, its vestments, virtually everything about it, and particularly its teachings as opposed and contrasted by the King James Bible, that it cannot, by any stretch of the imagination or by any definition, be regarded as a Christian church. But nonetheless, he says how much at that time a few mild words and the meekness and charity of true Christianity would have done for the cause of genuine religion may be seen by those who will examine the history of those times. If the conciliatory spirit of the Eastern Emperor had been reciprocated by the Roman Pontiff, the East and the West might have been today united in Christian bonds, and the Church of Rome and the Church of Rome may have spread her spiritual influence all over the world. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, and as you'll even see from R.W. Thompson's book, it has spread. The Roman Catholic Church has indeed spread its spiritual influence all over the world. The whole world, saith God in the Scriptures, the whole world wonders after this beast. And it says, but other objects filled the mind of Paschal the First, who was determined to maintain his own authority, whatever the result to Christianity and to the Church. That's right. The rise of Antichrist is prophesied in the Bible. It's going to happen. And if reconciliation by the East and the West would have any way hindered the rise of Antichrist, it was not to be. So that's why there's no reconciliation, not at least at this time in history, of any reconciliation between East and West, because prophecy declares that he who now letteth, that is the Eastern Empire or Caesar, will let until he be taken out of the way, and then that man shall be revealed, the man of sin. So here we have Bible prophecy taking place before our eyes. It shouldn't wonder us any bit that the Pope of Rome rejected this offer of conciliation between East and West. So the Pope rejects this offer of unity, ecumenical unity between the East and the West to save his own rise to global supremacy. And it says his stubbornness invited naturally a corresponding degree of illiberality on the part of the emperor, who caused the Pope's envoys to be whipped through the streets of Constantinople and the image worshippers within his domains to be treated with harshness and severity. The Pope now resorted to artifice to maintain himself. He invited the image worshippers of the East to come to Rome. Now remember, the East declared that they should not worship images and idols, as fate would have it. Imagine that idolatrous church at one time refused the worship of images and idols. Now it's just as idolatrous as the Roman Church. There's really no difference between the Roman Church. They wear a little different vestments. They claim a little different history, but they're all cut from the same filth. Idolatry. It says the Pope now resorted to artifice to maintain himself. He invited the image worshippers of the East. Yes, there was division in the East. Those who insisted that the veneration of idols was a proper worship of God. Those image worshippers who are now more compatible with Rome, it says that these image worshippers of the East should come to Rome, and he promised them protection. So the Pope of Rome is trying to further divide the Eastern Empire over this iconoclastic or this worship of images and idols. And it says he rebuilt monasteries and churches for their accommodation. And having exhausted his revenues in this undertaking, cunningly contrived an appeal to the superstition of his subjects in order to extort further contributions from them. So the Pope is going to do something very, very extraordinary to elicit more contributions to the Roman Catholic Church, so the Pope can build more monasteries and more churches to accommodate those who he was trying to entice to come to Rome from Constantinople over image worship. And it says, after rebuilding the church of Saint Cecilia, he placed her shrine upon its high altar. A shrine is idolatry. It's usually a painting or an image of this so-called saint, in this case Saint Cecilia, with candles and places for people to pray and to give money and dedicate their lives to this so-called saint. That is what this shrine is all about. But there's a problem with this shrine. It doesn't have any bones or hair or artifacts. No holy bones, as you might call them. No holy bones of this Saint Cecilia to make this shrine venerable. Okay? It says, after rebuilding the church at St. Cecilia, he placed her shrine upon its high altar. But the remains of the saint, in other words, the holy bones of the saint, who had been dead about 600 years, were wanting to give sanctity to the place and to excite the superstition of the attendants. So the Pope's got a problem. To really make this shrine a moneymaker for the Roman Catholic Church, he's got to come up with her holy bones. And it says, with the view of discovering them, these holy bones of St. Cecilia, he convoked the people on Sunday, called them all together on Sunday, and in their presence fell into a supernatural sleep. After awaking, he declared that Cecilia had appeared to him in a vision, and pointed with her finger to the place of her interment. That is, the place of her burial. Came to him in a dream, and pointed to where she was buried. Yeah. And it says he visited the spot, took a spade, dug up the earth, and, quote, discovered the body of the saint, clothed in a robe of tissue of gold, unquote, and with, quote, linen rags freshly impregnated with her blood, unquote. This is from Cormenon's work, The History of the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, so we know that this is documented, and if you know anything about the Roman Catholic Church, underneath every high altar in every Roman Catholic church all over the world, before Mass can be said upon that altar, it has to have beneath it the bones of an alleged saint. Okay? Mass cannot be said. You cannot sacrifice Jesus on the altar again and again and again and again unless there are some holy bones underneath that high altar. Now, these relics, which they are called, these holy bones, these relics were removed to the church. The faithful were thereby excited to contribute largely of their wealth to the pontifical treasury, and an example was thus set which led to like impostures and fraud to such an extent that innumerable saints were fabricated in order that money might be raised by the sale of their bones, a practice which has been carried to such disgraceful and ridiculous extent that the wood of the true cross, the hair of the Virgin Mary, and that of St. John the Baptist, a part of the body of Christ. Let me ask you, what I'm going to ask my listeners. That's right, the Roman Catholic Church swears that it has a part of the body of Christ himself. Can anybody guess? Can anybody guess what part of the body of Jesus Christ the Roman Catholic Church claims to possess? That's right, his foreskin upon his consecration at the temple and his circumcision. That's right, the Roman Catholic Church, even in order to raise money, professes to possess the foreskin of Jesus Christ, and the Christian world believes this garbage. The Catholic world believes it. It's a moneymaker. It's a real moneymaker. You know there's people from all over the world travel to Rome just to see Jesus' foreskin, or pay to see it, rather. Of course, Rome doesn't give away these tourist attractions. You pay to pray in Rome. It says they have the wood of the true cross. And, of course, if you're a regular listener to Inquisition Update, this is not new to you. We've read many, many books on this program that say the same thing. They have the true cross. As a matter of fact, they've got so many pieces of the true cross, you could build an ark with it. Okay? And they've got hair of the Virgin Mary, and that of St. John the Baptist, a part of the body of Jesus Christ himself, and hundreds of other equally impossible relics have been from time to time fraudulently imposed as genuine upon the ignorant and deluded followers of the papacy. Such a state of things could not possibly exist without almost universal corruption and degeneracy at Rome, especially among the popes, priests, and the lower clergy. After the death of Charlemagne, Louis le Debonair, his son, became his successor as emperor, Germany having been added to the dominions of France. He was both weak and superstitious, as are most Catholics, and was easily subjected to the will of the Pope. He sent his son Lothair to Rome to be consecrated by the Pope, who, when he reached there, was both surprised and shocked at the general depravity of the morals which prevailed. That's right, Lothair went to Rome, as did Greg Szymanski, and saw the depravity of Rome himself with his own eyes. And he called the attention of Pope Paschal to it and obtained from him a promise of reform. But so soon as Lothair had left Rome, the Pope caused 2 venerable priests to be arrested, charged them with having been informers, had their eyes put out and their tongues dragged out of their mouths in his own presence as punishment for the desire to reform the morals of the Pope and the clergy. That's right. Lothair got wound up about all this depravity in Rome because you guys ratted on us, so we're going to pull out your tongues right here. Look, you can't reform the reformable. The Church of Antichrist, the synagogue of Satan, will not be reformed. Okay, the wheat is going to grow up with the tares in this world. And the tares won't be rooted up until God gives the command, and He will give that command. Read Revelation chapter 17. It talks about the judgment of the great whore. That's the Roman Catholic Church. There will come a judgment of the Roman Catholic Church. The judgment of the great whore is spoken of specifically in Revelation chapter 17. And read that chapter for yourself and see what is going to happen to Rome. The Roman Catholic Church is going to be destroyed. Now it says, the Emperor Louis became indignant when he heard of this, and he sent ambassadors to Rome to investigate the facts. Before these, Pope Paschal solemnly swore he had nothing to do with it. They then demanded the delivery of the murderers, but this Pope refused because, quote, they were the family of St. Peter, and that it was his duty to protect them against all the sovereigns of the world, unquote. That's right, you have the papacy protecting murderers and then using religion to justify it. But that's not all that's in this quote of the Pope. He's to protect them against all the sovereigns of the world. What does that make him? Superior to all the sovereigns of the world. This indeed is the rise of Antichrist and his assumption of the role of King of Kings and Lord of Lords, in counterfeit of the true King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ, the righteous, the Savior of the world. It's a counterfeit. It cannot be called Christianity. It can only be called Antichrist. And that's what it is. And we'll continue our reading and discussion of the book, The Papacy and the Civil Power by R.W. Thompson. When we continue from the break, we're going to continue to talk about the growth of Antichrist in the world. No need to look for him in the future. He's been here all along. We'll be right back.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Papacy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Papacy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Papacy Reality News app. Get it now.
Okay, welcome back to the second half hour of Inquisition Update. We'll kind of recap where we've just been before the break. We've got the King of France, who is deeply allied in treason with the Pope of Rome. Emperor Louis of France sends his son Lothair to Rome to be consecrated by the Pope. You see, the King of France is in bed with the Pope, and he thinks the Pope is a god on earth, and he wants his son to be consecrated by the Pope. So he sends his son to Rome to be consecrated by the Pope, so that the Pope can impart his blessing upon Lothair, because he's soon going to become King of France. And they want this unholy alliance to be locked up as a union of church and state. You know, it's impenetrable. It's just, well, it's unstoppable if there's a union of church and state. So Lothair gets to Rome to be consecrated by this devil, the Pope of Rome, and he sees the depravity, the moral depravity of Rome, the prostitution that is set up and even taxed by the priests. So the priests have a sexual outlet. That's right, brothels set up to service the priests, the celibate priests. And he's shocked and horrified that this could be called Christianity, and it's a huge embarrassment for France. So Lothair, instead of going to Rome to be consecrated by the Pope, the Holy Father of Rome, he's disgusted, and he charges the Pope to reform Rome, to reform the priests, and to put down some of this moral depravity and stop embarrassing the Holy Faith and France. So the Pope pays him lip service, says, yeah, we'll clean up our act, and sends Lothair home. And after Lothair leaves town, he rounds up a couple of priests and has them tortured for having exposed the need for reform in Rome. See, the Pope doesn't want to reform Rome. He's the man of sin. What does the man of sin want? Free love, right? Well, even if he has to pay for it, he wants it. So he has the informers, the so-called spies and informers who tipped off Lothair, has them tortured in his own eyes. And then the word gets back to France. Lothair comes back and wants to investigate, and the Pope says, I had nothing to do with it. And when Lothair says, I want the murderers, you give me the murderers of these priests, the Pope says, I can't, because they're relatives of St. Peter the Apostle, and it is my job, my divine prerogative, to protect the descendants of Peter against all the sovereigns of the world, if necessary. You see how this is? And it says, and you might imagine that when the rumor of all this reaches Main Street Rome, or of all the peasants and people start hearing about all this dirty laundry being exposed in the Vatican, they're outraged, right? So it says the factions that should have grown up under such a pope as this is not to be at all wonderful. In other words, it divided Rome. This was a huge controversy. And there were factions for the pope, and there were factions against the pope. So the people, using their own God-given conscience, are realizing, hey, there's something really sick going on with this pope. Now it says they were excited to such a degree that at his death 2 popes were elected. In other words, we're so sick and tired of all this crud going on in Rome, we're gonna elect our own pope. That's the French people. They elected their own pope in defiance of this Antichrist in Rome. And it says one was elected by the nobles and the clergy, and the other by the people of Rome. So you have a division now between the nobles, which are the rich ruling elite of Rome, who get their power and strength from the Pope, together with his clergy. They're on one side for one Pope, and the other Pope is elected by the people of Rome. So it's always a division. The kings and the priests on one side, and the people on the other. You see, when you have a church that thrives and derives all of its power on the union of church and state, you have religion and politics siding against the people. And that's what took place, and that's what resulted in the election of 2 popes. One pope was supported by the nobles and the clergy, that is, the politicians and the clergy, and the other by the people of Rome. The latter being the strongest, in other words, the people. The people are always the strongest. They just have to be convinced that they're the strongest. But nonetheless, they elected their own pope, and it says the latter, the people, being the strongest, succeeded in placing Eugenius II upon the pontifical throne. Being a Roman and the representative of the people, he was disposed to suppress the general immorality which prevailed among the clergy, and for this purpose sought the aid of the Emperor Louis to put down the opposing faction. The Emperor Louis again sent Lothair to Rome, accompanied by the venerable abbot of St. Denis in France, to ascertain the true condition of affairs. When he reached there, he heard the complaints of the people, who represented to him that they had been stripped of their wealth by former popes and greatly oppressed by their tyranny. Lothair, indignant at these abuses and outrages, commanded the Pope to restore the citizens their property, which had been unjustly confiscated. See, the Pope always steals from the people. The Pope doesn't have a job. He has to live off of the people. So the Pope always steals from the people, both yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He was ordered to restore to the citizens their property which he had unjustly confiscated, and endeavored to provide against the repetition of these wrongs by the promulgation of a decree for securing the people a voice in the government of their own affairs. Here we have the rise of a republic. The people want a constitution. They want social justice. They want the Pope to be bound by the laws of the people. Now you gotta know that this Pope, this papacy, which calls itself the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, is not going to be ruled by the people. The people are to be ruled. And he is the ruler of rulers. He is, as it were, God on earth. So he is not about to be ruled by the lowly peasants, right? It says this Constitution, which the people wanted, this Constitution is important as showing what might have been done for the cause of religion and reform under an honest and unambitious Pope if Pope Eugenius II had lived long enough to provide for the faithful execution of its provisions. That's right, any Pope who starts to concede that the people have rights and have a right to a constitution and have a right to demand that the moral depravity of the Roman Catholic Church should be reformed, those popes don't live very long. As we've seen so many times throughout all the readings on Inquisition Update, these popes don't live very long. And it says, among other things, it required that the equitable justice, okay, this constitution that the people are trying to promulgate, which puts the Pope under the people and demands justice, it says, among other things, it required that equitable justice should be rendered to the people, that the exercise of the right of election of the chiefs of the church should not be impeded. Now, wait a minute. You mean to tell me these people of Rome demand that the hierarchs of the Roman Catholic Church should be elected by the people? Not as long as the man of sin is on earth, because he's going to appoint all the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church. They're going to continue to sell by indulgences their office. They're going to seat themselves. Remember, the Bible plainly tells us that the kings seat themselves, and they take counsel against the Lord. They say, let us cast their cords from us, right? You're seeing Bible prophecy fulfilled right here in history. Not in the future. History. Bible prophecy fulfilled. The kings are going to set themselves, right? The people demand elections to elect the chiefs of the Roman Catholic Church, but the Pope says, no, I will seat them. Okay? Part of these reforms that this Constitution proposed, among other things, required that equitable justice should be rendered to the people, that the exercise of the right of election of the chiefs of the church should not be impeded, that the emperor should be annually informed. Now, this is the state. The emperor should be annually informed. In other words, an annual report sent to the emperor, quote, in what manner justice had been rendered to the citizens. That's right, it's commanding that the Pope issue an annual report to the emperor as how he had rendered justice to the citizens and how the Constitution was observed. That the people of Rome should be asked, quote, under what law they wish to live in order that they may be judged according to the law which they shall have adopted, unquote. Kind of sounds like America, doesn't it? Kind of sounds like the Constitution of the United States of America, doesn't it? That's right, they tried to raise a constitution in Rome, right in the face of the Pope. Say, Pope, we're going to elect the hierarchs of the Roman Catholic Church. You're going to issue us a report every year of how you have benefited the people, served the people. We're no longer going to serve you. You are going to serve us. Now, what does the Bible say about a bishop? Because after all, the Pope is a bishop, right? The bishop of Rome. He's to be a servant. He will be great in the kingdom of heaven, shall be the least. Shall serve God's people as a shepherd. But not the Pope. He insists, as did the Nicolaitans, to lord it over the people. The doctrine of the Nicolaitans is grown flesh and blood and bone in the body and the institution of the papacy. You want to know what a Nicolaitan is? Study the history of the papacy, and you'll know what a Nicolaitan is. They lord it over the people. Don't look for Antichrist in the future. He's been here all the time. The people wanted to be judged according to the laws that they promulgated and adopted, and that all the dignitaries of the state should take an oath of fidelity to the emperor, not the pope. They should take an oath of fidelity to the emperor, which should be of superior obligation to their promise of fidelity to the Holy See. It really does sound like the United States of America, doesn't it? We passed a Constitution, the First Amendment of which gave us the right to speak out against the Pope and the King. Do you know why we have the First Amendment? Because the founders of this country, as Freemasonic and pagan as they were, understood that during the old world order, the people had no rights. And if they criticized the Pope and the kings over who he ruled, their tongues were cut out. They were tortured and they burned at the stake. They were sent off to the Inquisition to be tormented, stretched on the rack, and killed. They did not want the old world order to be restored in these United States of America, so they gave us the First Amendment guaranteeing us the right to criticize both the Pope and the King. And that's what I do here on Inquisition Update so long as God gives me breath. I'm going to expose this unholy alliance between church and state, between Antichrist and the beast over whom she rides. And I'm going to do it on amateur radio, too, if I can ever find a godly man to join me. You see, what they're trying to do in this country today is, again, unite church and state. You hear all these platitudinous, wonderful words. This is a Christian nation. Be careful, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful, because they're trying to sell you a bill of goods. This is only a Christian nation if Christ rules over it. If it is not Christ who makes this country a Christian nation, then it is Antichrist who makes this a quote-unquote Christian nation. And you better believe this movement to declare the United States a Christian nation is not led by Christ, but by Antichrist. Now, there's a growing segment, a minority as always, of people in this world, of people in this country, that have made Christ and Christ alone their king, but they are a silent minority, afraid to speak, but they need to rise up and identify this counterfeit Christianity that seeks to unite church and state to recreate the old world order and call it new. It's taking place right before your very eyes. It's taking place by politicians, both left and right. You see, it's very, very difficult for a true Bible-believing Christian to have any say in government in this country, because it costs a lot of money. You have to get cooperation from the press to get elected, for you to be known enough, well enough by the electorate to have any votes cast in your behalf. And they have control. The counterfeit Christians have control of the press. And they elect all the candidates. So God's true people don't have an advocate in government anymore. And most of them are still deceived and hope that these so-called Christian politicians are serving Christ, when indeed they are serving Antichrist, serving his purposes in this country. I'm going to make the distinction between those who serve Christ and those who serve Antichrist vivid in your mind, so that you can quickly discern the difference, and hopefully to instill upon your mind just how important it is to know the difference between the counterfeit Christianity and the true, so that you might draw deeper and deeper in love with the true Christ and separate yourself from this world. Be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do you know what needs to be renewed in the minds of Protestants in this country? Something that was known during the time of the Protestant Reformation? That the Pope fulfills all of the prophecies concerning Antichrist. That the Papacy, the Roman Catholic Church together, fulfill the role of Antichrist in the world. It is not Christianity by any stretch of the imagination, no matter how polite R.W. Thompson tends to be. And your ecumenical churches that you go to seek unity and peace, a mutual Christianity, in total ignorance of what all the Protestant reformers knew, that the Roman Catholic Church was the very seat of Antichrist. It's an anti-Christian religion. And what possesses anyone in this country who calls himself a Christian, especially one who calls himself a Protestant, that wants to have anything to do with the ecumenical movement, cannot be comprehended. It's insanity. It's spiritual insanity. It's rebellion against Christ. To seek to unite with the Roman Catholic Church identifies one as deceived. R.W. Thompson, as polite as he is, still called the Roman Catholic Church a Christian church. That somehow it had lost its way early in its founding. Do you think these so-called vicars of Christ would ever get on their knees and repent and sell their papal tiaras and truly serve the people? It's not going to happen. It's not prophesied to happen. This abomination won't be destroyed until Christ destroys it. So it's up to us to guard ourselves against it. And that's what I hope Inquisition Update can do, to help people guard against Antichrist. The people of Rome wanted the Pope to answer to the Emperor, and they wanted the Emperor to take an oath of allegiance to the people and not to the Holy See. You suppose we could raise up that kind of sentiment here in the United States of America? The senseless Roman Catholics of Rome had the sense to realize that the papacy was not worth serving. They were sick and tired of being slaves to this godless organization known as the papacy. And they wanted to put the Pope in a box under a constitution that obliged him to serve the people and swear an oath to the emperor and stay out of political affairs. They basically wanted to tell the Pope, well, you can continue to be an ecclesiastic if you want, but stay out of our politics. You're not our king. You may be our priest, but you cannot be our king. You suppose we could raise that sort of sentiment right here in Protestant USA? After all, Protestantism got its name from protesting this abomination called the Vatican, called the Holy See, called the Holy Father. There's not enough protest here in this so-called Christian nation. Now, the author continues, he says, this liberal constitution restored tranquility among the Roman people, which was greatly promoted by the proceedings of a council called by Pope Eugenius II and the enactment of decrees looking to the reform of the clergy. So this Pope was going along with these reforms. It says, but Eugenius died after a pontificate of only 3 years before any reformatory results were secured, leaving the clergy of Rome in a state of utter and debasing ignorance. Well, they're still in a state of utter and debasing ignorance. Pope Eugenius was going to go along with these reforms, but he only lasted 3 years. Why? Because you can't reform the irreformable. You try to reform the Roman Catholic Church, somebody's going to lop off your head. That's the precedent that was set early on in this church. That's the way it's going to be until Christ returns. It says they only knew how to follow the prescribed rules, these priests of the Roman Catholic Church. They didn't know anything about Christianity. They only knew how to follow the prescribed rules to explain the pater and the credo and to exact contributions from the people. Yeah, they're good at getting money out of the people. That's all they knew. And it says, many of the inferior clergy could not distinguish the names of angels from those of demons. And says Cormenin, they believed that God was only corporeal. They knew neither the creed of the apostles, nor that of the Mass, nor that of St. Athanasius, nor even the Lord's Prayer. Unquote. It's not a Christian church. It's the Church of Antichrist. Now tomorrow, we're going to get to some quotes of some of these popes, and you don't want to miss it. On Inquisition Update on First Amendment Radio. I'll see you tomorrow.
Visit crosstheborder.org, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.